Sure.
This is another episode of Off the Record podcast with your guest host, Sergey Ross. And today I'm joined by another great founder, Nelio Leone from UrbanMonks, a growth marketing agency that he started in early 2019. Now, before going the entrepreneurial route, Nelio was a marketing manager at L'Oreal in Paris, then director of brand at Careem, and head of growth at Washmen. Nelio, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, I got to ask you, UrbanMonks, where that name came from?
So it actually came from a trip that I did when I first resigned from my previous job. I was in Bali, and I was really deep into understanding what type of business I could do from a laptop. I was really super bullish on finding any sort of business that would allow me to travel the world, do everything on a laptop, and never again step foot in an office. That was pre-COVID, so location independent, digital nomads, and all of that was kind of like the abnormal, like the non so normal.
Too early.
People. Well, now it's pretty much like everyone, and yeah, so that's where I came back. I shaved my head. I bought like all these like really cool Buddhist necklaces, and I had like all this like the Bali look. If you've been to Bali, you're probably like
right.
thing. And I was just with my wife, and my wife's like, I was like brainstorming on the name of the company, and she was like, I don't know what you look like, man. You look like super weird. You look like some sort of urban monks, because I was wearing like my Nike Air Force, but I have this monk look. And so she was like, why don't you call it the Urban Monks? And I was like, oh, that's actually a cool name. Let's do it.
The fact that you didn't call it an agency, I think it's a big advantage. Everybody has some sort of an agency word, a lot of people attached.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like media or whatever.
Yeah. What was your first job when you moved into marketing?
So my first job really oh man, that goes back to like a very, very long time ago. I didn't really know I had like a knack for marketing until one day when it was, I think 2002 or 2001, 2002. Basically I just had finished high school back then. And with my mates, we went to Greece for the summer. And what happened is that so my parents were in Argentina, and they gave me some pocket money to say, hey man, like just, you have this amount of money, you can stay 10 days, you have more than you need, just go and enjoy. Well done for your school or whatever I've done that year, and now go enjoy. I get to Greece the first day, I lose my wallet. And back then, like it was kind of different because the world was not as connected as now. So we still had to go, like there was no smartphone, so I couldn't like really reach out to my parents, had to go to the internet cafe and tell them and whatever. And my friends were like, don't worry, we're going to give you the money and whatnot. And I was like, fuck no, like, like it would have been like a whole mess. And I decided, you know what I'm going to do here, I'm going to work here while I also do the vacation, so that instead of going and ask for money and ask my parents and then justify the fact that I lost my wallet and whatnot, I'm going to go back home with money. So long story short, I found a job as a PR for a small like bar, lounge, whatever. And then had so many other ideas coming to fruition while I was doing the PR. So one thing was we started like subletting our apartment because we had more like bed spaces. And at some point I had like this PR job, like this promoter job, and I had like a big old apartment that I was subletting with other people. So it became like, I went home, I remember something around like $8,000, $6,000 or $8,000 at the end of the summer.
And you were on vacation at the time, right? This was the purpose of the trip.
Yeah, and it was a vacation at the time. So, and that's really when I understood a lot about marketing. One thing that I understood back then about marketing was the fact of creating hype around products in a very natural and very authentic way. And for instance, I still remember the owner was a Greek guy, and he had basically came from a very humble background, and his father had still like a farm. And so what we did in order to attract tourists in a moment where like it was kind of like dipping
down. Yeah.
Yeah, so I took two very, very hot Australian girls that were staying with us, because at some point I was almost running like a small hostel. I had like so many people coming in and out, paying for that, paying for the rooms. So it was very simple. At some point, I was subletting a lot of different beds, and one of the two people that were in our structure were two really, really hot Australian girls. And I asked them, hey, do you want to make some cash and have some fun going down to the beach? And they said, sure, let's go. And so what we did, I asked the owner of this small club to ask his father to lend us a donkey. And they were like, what? So we took the donkey. We did like a whole sort of like really funky baby paint on the donkey to make it like look super cool. And then we went and we went down to the beach, myself with a cowboy hat, with a donkey, and two Australian girls just like giving flyers of that place. And that's when I realized that and that's, when I came back, we filled that place, and there was like a super long queue, and I used to be paid €1 per person that would go in. And at some point I talked to the owner and said, like, man, in 5 years that I've opened this stuff, we've never been so full. So that's when I realized I had like a really, really good knack for marketing.
And then you moved on to fashion. You did time at L'Oreal and then another company. Why fashion?
Yeah, I mean, then it was pretty simple, because I was in France at that time, and the best marketing French people have done, in my opinion, back then, and still my opinion, is really in the fashion and in the beauty industry. Fashion, beauty, and wine. That's where French people really excel. And I wanted to learn. At some point, I understood that I had like that kind of potential in marketing. Now I said, what are the best schools around me in terms of like, where are the best places I can learn marketing as an art?
Why is that? Is it because there's so much competition in fashion? It's really hard to stand out.
I don't know. I think it goes back to national competitive advantages. Some nations are better at doing stuff than others, and you could retrace back to their history or whatever that is. But France, they're extremely good at everything related to beauty, everything related to spirits, and everything related to fashion. That's what they really do excel. So if you go in Switzerland, it will be about like jewelry and about watches. And if you go in different places in Silicon Valley, it's going to be about tech. So my criteria back then was like, I'm in France right now. I moved here in Paris to stay with my wife, and now I need to find a job here. What is the best marketing school that I could learn to? It's probably not tech. It's not large distribution or FMCG, and in my mind, it was very clear that they were extremely good at building that oh la la kind of feeling in people. Yeah. I said, how can I pretty much take that and destructure it to understand the formula. And so that's why I fought really to get into Chanel. And Chanel, it's it's really huge brand where everything is on brand. It's still family owned. And there's so many subtleties that you learn working with them that make their secret formula, their secret sauce. And it was fascinating to be there for that time.
What was the difference between Chanel and L'Oreal, just from your as a marketer?
So as a marketer, they're very different. Chanel is more into the pure formula of that French touch, whereas L'Oreal, they took that formula and they turned it into mass market, more far more distributed, so just think about the difference between McDonald's and a burger, a super specialty burger chain,
like a smaller chain.
A smaller chain that is that uses super premium ingredient. So one is gourmet, the other one is gourmet but at scale. So it's more probably not McDonald's, but it's more gourmet at scale. So I really wanted to see both, and that's why I went then from Chanel to L'Oreal because L'Oreal was a bit more dynamic, more international, faster, louder, and it was like more scalable as a model in itself.
So every founder now, we're gonna skip to your move to Careem, which is really equally fascinating, but we will come back to it if we have time. Now, every founder needs to build a brand somehow online. What do they need to do? Let's say they started a company relatively just a couple of days ago. Maybe they just open it up. What do they need to do from their brand perspective day one? What do they need to think about?
Well, they need to contact us because now we recently launched a service where we help them build their personal brand, and we're getting like our beta users, so it's not even expensive. In a year or so, it's going to be very expensive. I'm telling you that. But
well, I believe that. I believe that. But from maybe we start from a personal brand, and then you could talk about the other side.
So I'm just talking about personal brand here, and this is exactly the thing that I've been studying for like a very long time, because I was like fascinated by these people that were really out there, that have like a presence, and you know that they have like some sort of following. Again, I'm not like a super. I mean, I don't have like 1 million followers right now. I think like on LinkedIn, I'm almost like 15,000. But the thing that is really important for me was not that. It was like, how do I get my voice and my message across in a way that it impacts people, that inspires people, that gets people somewhere, and that, you know, there was before I read your post and after I read your post. So how do I make an impact? And so I think like the most important thing is really being like super clear about your message. What do you want to tell people out there? And right now we're working with founders because we launched this sort of like LinkedIn influencer program where we basically go and find super interesting founders that have like a very strong story to tell. But now it's locked in a closet because they don't have time, because they lack the time, they lack the expertise, they don't have the consistency, they don't have a system in place that allows them to scale that voice and to put that voice in front of a lot of people. And since we started this, it started as an experiment. We just took like one client first, then another came, and now it's becoming like a proper activity that we like, a proper service that we sell. And what I realized is that they were all struggling at the same thing, and they had stories that were much more interesting than mine, yet they had 0 followers. As soon as they posted, they had 2 likes and nobody commenting. And I was posting something that was like completely average compared to what they had to tell, because these were like really amazing founders that created like robotics company, or that created like really like, you know, outstanding stuff that I can't even dream of. But my post on, I don't know, on like the 3 or the 10 podcasts to follow was getting like max reach, and these guys were not getting anything. And so they came to me, I was like, Nelio, I don't understand. How do I do this? And so it's very important to have first clarity on message, and then there's distribution. A lot of people, whenever it comes to content and to personal brand, they think of crafting the perfect post, the perfect content, etc. Content quality is like 20%. The real thing is 80%, which is distribution. And I spent like so much time figuring this distribution out, and I haven't figured it out at scale yet. And there are so many people that are way stronger than I am, and they're way below, like you know, down the road from where.
And when you talk distribution, Nelio, when you talk distribution, do you mean one platform? 2 platforms, 5 platforms, or do you mean the frequency of posting on one platform? Like, how do you look at it?
No, distribution is basically, it's leveraging the algorithm of the platform that you decide to post on. And it comes with one thing. You need to study the algorithm first. Because if your content doesn't comply to that algorithm, your content is not going to be distributed. If your content doesn't respect the laws of gravity of content, it's going to crash. So there are very specific laws that no matter how good your content is, no matter how beautiful it sounds, no matter how curated it is, if it
doesn't get shown, right?
It doesn't show. So like, you know, how do you win that distribution in a way that is very organic? And I've worked relentlessly with my team, first with my own account, but then I trained a team, etc., to really like properly craft a system that is much more scalable, so that anyone can probably, that you could give me any sort of account, as long as you have like an interesting message to say, we can make it scale.
Right. What about for founders to give them a little bit of some kind of tangible thing, so they know they have a certain message they need to say, they have decent clarity. Let's say they're doing it on LinkedIn, they're doing it themselves because that's where they are for now. They have some kind of story to tell. What do they need to do? What do they need to do to get some traction? I'm not talking about 1,000 likes, but a few. What do they need to do?
So the first thing, they need to cater that specific post, that specific message to a specific audience. So first of all, it comes with your connection, because let's say if today you're posting on LinkedIn, you probably don't even know who your connections are. Like, you don't have a proper mind mapping, you don't have a proper mapping of who you've connected with. So now you have no clarity on the people in your network. So it's as if you're going inside a room. Every time you post on LinkedIn, it's as if you're standing up on stage. And now you have zero clarity on who's sitting there while you're talking. So it's a recipe of failure. So the first thing we do, we map out the connections, because the founder would come to us, and or even myself or whatever, they would come to us and say, "Oh, I want to tell this story and this other," but it's like, forget about your story. Who's your audience? So define your audience, and then say, "Oh, my audience are, I don't know, tell me something. I don't know. You tell me like investors, VCs,
investors, sure,
Silicon Valley." I say, "Fine, perfect. Your audience is that. Do you have these people in your audience?" "Oh, I don't know. I added a bunch of people." Then we go on the back end. We look at all the connections they have, and the following, which is like very different. And then we're like, man, you only have people in logistics that are sitting in like the other side of the world. So now in your mind, you're targeting these other people there that are not in the room. So you're standing up on a stage where the audience is not the people you want to talk to. So the first thing is, how do we get that audience? How do we connect to that audience? And there's so many systems for that. So we go and we connect with that audience first, and then we seed content that resonates with the audience. So we start with the audience first. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Otherwise, you're standing on a stage where your spectators or people that are listening to your messages, like, you don't even know who they are, and you don't even know if that message resonates with them in the first place.
I actually think this is something that most people miss. Like, I think most people miss that part. Like, literally what you just said, audience mapping. I don't think most people even look at that enough.
That's the first thing, and that's the first thing we actually go and look at. We look at the audiences, the amounts of followers, how many influencers you have in your audience, and then how you connect with different segments of your audience. Because at the end of the day, you're like a product. As soon as you want to start doing personal branding, you are selling yourself as a product. So you need to sell to different cohorts in a very specific way. Simply that you don't have like a physical product, but it's like you're delivering value to them.
We have a few minutes left, Nelio. This was actually great, by the way. Your final message to the audience, anything you wanted to leave them with? We mostly talk to founders. Anything I haven't asked you in this short time you wish I did?
Oh, wow. So I think the next steps is in terms of expectations and in terms of consistency. Building a personal brand is extremely difficult. It takes really so much time. There is no silver bullet. There is no magic algorithm. There's no growth hack that will put you in front of thousands and thousands of people. It just takes a lot of consistency, a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of dedication. That's why you need to block specific time, specific resources, and specific focus. That's what I want to say. It's like, it's not, even when you look from the outside, that there's a kid out there with a phone that just takes like a stupid selfie with his dog, and you see him like trending for millions and millions of people. Well, that's the tip of the iceberg. That's what you see. Like, it's not the tool, it's actually that he or she cracked so many things that you haven't seen happening. And one big thing is timing, because attention, and that's what like all these big marketing gurus as well will probably agree to. It's like pretty much like a currency, and like currency, like all like cryptocurrencies, like
Right.
all like it all follows through bear and bull market. So you like attention is exactly the same. You need to get in at the right time. You need to get out at the right time. You need to stay the course. Like, you know, it's there's a real formula to it. It's not.
And there's
not
obviously we're not talking about only time of day. We're talking about the context. We're talking about what's happening in the news. We're talking about what else is going on with you, maybe with your audience, all of that stuff. It's exactly. The context plus the platform plus the timing of the day, of the month,
and as well the maturity of the platform. So why, for instance, I chose LinkedIn, it's because I started this whole process in 2019 when I started my business, because I was like, man, I need clients now. How do I get clients? And so I started sharing like content for free of everything I was learning through the process. And there's like then as a result, a lot of founders came in and saying, hey man, I love your content. Can we work together? And I was like, yeah, sure. And that's how I built my business based on LinkedIn. And I started on LinkedIn specifically because all the other platforms were impossible to scale, and were impossible to get noticed. If you do this on Instagram, the discovery mechanism is pretty impossible. So the only two left were either Twitter or LinkedIn. And I chose LinkedIn because it's more on the professional, and also because the algorithm back then was much more open.
Well, you didn't consider TikTok, or was it a little bit too early?
I think it was a mix of being a bit too early, and also the audience is not really there to like. It's not like a business audience. It is in some sense. Of course, you can always get like a lot of business. I know a lot of, but simply the format. I don't know. It just felt I really love writing, and LinkedIn allows you that, whereas TikTok is more like video heavy. And
funny.
Yeah,
and it's also what you're good at, right? What you're comfortable with, like writing versus video.
I love long form, and LinkedIn post allows you to write like a post of 1,300 characters, which is like a blog post nowadays. So basically, like you're blogging the old way, but you're doing it through posts, and it's very powerful. I feel. I mean, I love the fact of like putting my headphones on, putting some lo-fi music, just getting in the zone and writing. Simply because since I was 5, I love writing. So,
Nelio, well, this was awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for these answers. I'm sure founders will find it super helpful, and we will cut the short clips out of it to make sure that they don't miss that part. And if you guys have any questions, reach out to Nelio. We'll have a link in the show notes. And this was another episode of Off the Record. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back. Thanks.